Thanks for joining us for this question and answer session for the feature documentary film Spawning Grounds. I am here with the film's director, Nils Cowan, and one of the film's main characters, McKenna Sweet-Dorman, who's a Snoqualmie tribal member and works in the Office of Governmental Affairs and Special Projects. So welcome to you both.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Congratulations on a very beautiful film. One of the things I loved about it is it's a very specific story about a very specific place, but it connects to this much bigger story globally. And I wonder, Nils, maybe you can talk about what drew you to this story and what made you want to make this film.
Absolutely. Well, initially I was doing some work with a group called Trout Unlimited, which I'm sure some people have heard of. And yeah, it was about dredging for gold in salmon streams. And through that project, I learned about this fish called the kokanee. And, you know, I was listening to someone tell me the story, and then they told me that it was a salmon that doesn't go out to the ocean. I didn't even know that existed.
Right, me neither, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, I know we know very little about what those ocean-going species do when they're out there. And there's, you know, whenever you talk about salmon health, you know, there's a lot of people say, well, they spend all this time in the ocean, we don't really know what happens. But, you know, thinking about this fish that spawns in the streams and stays in this lake system, you know, that's, you know, seems like a really good opportunity to tell this kind of microcosm of that larger story and get into the subject that we're always dealing with, unfortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, is, you know, the depletion of these once incredible salmon populations, but getting at it sort of a microcosmic angle, and yeah, being able to concentrate at this community effort around the lake as well.
McKenna, I love your role in the film, and I wonder how you got involved and what was like the message that you wanted, the story you wanted people to hear from this.
Yeah, I met Nils early on in the project. The tribe is part of the Kokanee work group, and it's this amazing coalition of governments, landowners, nonprofit organizations like Trout Unlimited that have come together around the Kokanee salmon. And through that work, realizing that though the Kokanee's plight spoke to everyone, there wasn't really an understanding of the deeper connection that the tribe has, especially with that lake, that area, and that fish. And so we wanted to make sure that while telling this story, that the tribe's history, culture, and connection to the fish were also told alongside that.
Yeah, it's interesting that the kokanee, I mean, most people don't know what a kokanee is, right? And it becomes like a character in your film. It's not just like it is a character. It's a very powerful character in the film, and I found myself very attached to this character and rooting for it, right? I mean, and I assume that's part of what you wanted to say, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'll let Nils kind of talk about that more on what his vision was and how he told the story. From the tribe's perspective, it's just a unique situation having this fish that everyone can connect with, that most people don't know exist. And it's very similar with our tribal culture. The Pacific Northwest, you can visually see a lot of native art around, but if you ask most people, they don't know that they've even spoken to a native before. And I can guarantee you have. It's very similar with the fish.
Wow, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and for us, you know, that you know, us meaning sort of the filmmaking team, because I was just one person in a large team of creative people. But yeah, that was the goal from the outset, is we have to really make sure we get this indigenous history right. But then as important as that was, trying to create a connection with this fish, you know, hopefully an emotional connection, which is tough to do with, you know, especially since they're, you know, especially during the filming, we're not very numerous. And we actually were 12 months into production before we got our first image of an actual kokanee. So I'm really heartened that you felt a connection with the fish and were rooting for it, because that was something we really tried to show between McKenna and some of the scientists working with kokanee.
One of the things I love about the film too is that it's a journey. Like it takes place over time. You see things develop and change on screen, as they're happening. How long were you involved in making this film? How long was your journey?
It was about 2.5 years total, from when we first, got a little bit of funding and did our first couple shoots till the final piece. And the original idea was to document one season in the kind of the life of the Kokanee and the life of the community, working to restore it. But it seemed like we needed a second season because we that first season where the number of fish was down to 19 adult spawners, that was a real surprise, and it just shocked us all, and we just realized we had to show the efforts over that next season and what the results might be.
Has the film had an impact on the efforts to bring back the Kokanee?
It's definitely gotten a lot of eyes. We had a number of sold out premieres, including a special event at the Snoqualmie tribal lands. But COVID kind of affected our ability to go out with the film, so we kind of have been getting it out different ways, including festivals. But yeah, I mean, some of the programs to restore plant life have also been curtailed, but I think there's been really good participation in the events that have been able to happen, and there's definitely a groundswell that I've been aware of people just moving to the area and wanting to know, what is this fish and how can I help it.
McKenna, can you talk about how you've been involved with the film since it's come out?
Yeah, so we've been trying, especially this year, being it so difficult to get that messaging out and to gather. We've tried outreach in a few different ways, and something I've been working on is incorporating that into the local school systems, into their curriculum. So the districts that are around Lake Sammamish, we're making sure that those kids also grow up with this story and understanding not just on native salmon, but what's happening in their own backyards and what they can do to help.
And what would you like them to do, or what do you hope people do?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, there's always the get involved, but before that, even I really think it's important for people to understand, to research where they're living. There's a unique connection and story around any place on this earth, and there's probably species or people's histories that you don't know about that play a very significant role in what's happening around you.
Hmm. And can you say more about that? Like what would you want people to do? Like after
Learn
they get
more.
off this Q&A, what's that?
Learning more, researching about that history. I mean, you can also look up organizations if you want to get more involved and physically find the nonprofits that are around you, the tribes that are around you, and get involved with those efforts. There's likely a lot of events that are around restoration. I know that in our area, there's so many different organizations doing riparian plantings in the fall, winter. Not this year, unfortunately, but usually that's a pretty good season to get involved.
Was there any pushback on the effort to save the Kokanee? Like it's a lot of effort going in. I could see people saying it's this one little fish, there's not that many of them. Is it that important? I'm just wondering if were there people against the efforts to bring it back?
I encountered, and they would not go on camera, but encountered a number of landowners who think this fish is the main reason why there's basically, restrictions on people building docks or just throwing a bunch of rocks on their natural shoreline, to protect their land. And that, this fish is being shoved down their throats as this, reason for the county and the state to tell them what to do. So that wasn't a perspective that I was hoping to cover in the film, but a lot of these folks would just not go on camera.
For good reason. I mean,
it
wouldn't come off that well, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I offered, we'll spend time and because they had real complaints about things they wanted to do that they felt were natural and, had been approved by their, scientists, I guess, that they had consulted with. But a lot of people also won't open their stretch of a stream that's on their land to some of the science research that goes on. Um, so yeah, I hopefully that is changing as, you know, more people are, you know, encountering these deeper stories and paying attention. McKenna has had a lot of experiences of, you know, seeing that moment where someone's perspective kind of turns and they realize why this land and this water they're on is sacred beyond their, you know, immediate use or enjoyment.
McKenna, towards the end of the film, I'm pretty sure it's you in the film that says this is a story of hope, right? Is it that's your words, right?
Yeah, I think it's really something that we all echoed in making this. Seeing the community that has come together despite that opposition is really amazing. It just kind of speaks to the need for that coming together, that telling the story and sharing that through that education process. More people, I think, have had their eyes open, and it's the point that we're at with the kokanee in Lake Sammamish. They're genetically unique, and so if these runs go extinct, they're gone. Kokanee as a species, you can find them plentiful in other locations, and so it's hard sometimes for people to understand what is so unique about a location or a specific species in that location and their immediate impacts. But it is hopeful. It's hopeful that we have so many coming together, and especially in tribal governments with local governments and state governments, that doesn't usually happen, and that we have as many landowners as, you know, don't understand because they've moved here from other regions fairly recently. The ones who have been here and have had that time to experience the kokanee in their own backyards, in their streams, they have that shared connection. And so it is hopeful to be able to open up people's eyes.
Yeah, that's great. There's the part in the film where you show how I guess a while back one development was just pouring things into the stream, paving over parts of the stream, right? And it's such a dramatic, it's so sad and kind of, you know, emotionally impactful to see those photos. And then there's the reverse where you see like the culverts being built and the overpasses being built and things like that. That's, to me, that was one of those hopeful moments of like, wow, you got people actually like doing a huge amount of work for this. How did that feel to you to make that part of the film or to witness that in happening in the world?
Yeah, I mean, to see those visual transitions, you know, especially when you've been talking about this culvert's going to get replaced and you've been angling everything towards that story, and then you see it actually happen, and it obviously looks like destruction at first, but yeah, in the space of those, you know, couple week time lapses, you really see how all this work, which includes all the fundraising and changing the minds of city council members, et cetera, you know, results in this transformation of what was, you know, looked kind of like a, you know, a stream with no clear bed that had been, you know, subject to all this runoff, and all of a sudden it looks like a stream again. And it's unfortunate that we have to kind of reverse engineer some of these places because the impact is so deep. But yeah, there's extremely empowering moments to see for the first time.
If people wanted to get involved in this cause of restoring, bring the kokanee back, you know, what could they do? What are the steps people can take?
Well, beyond what McKenna mentioned, I was going to say earlier, there's projects in all northwestern states to identify these culverts, because a lot of them were put in without any consideration, and so they need volunteers to basically walk these streams. And you know, there's a whole checklist you can do. Trout Unlimited runs the training here in Washington, and I believe in Oregon as well. But you know, you can actually volunteer just a couple hours a week and help identify these, you know, barriers to salmon and other fish. So that's a really helpful and potentially beautiful thing you can do. You know, strapping on waders and walking up streams in the Northwest sounds great to me.
Yeah. Yeah, you have those great visuals of the people walking up the streams and their waders. That does look fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were working on this film having no idea that you'd be releasing in the middle of a pandemic. What's that been like for you, and how's it changed your plans?
Yeah, I mean, our first goal was really regional and local impact. We really did want to engage the community here first and foremost, and we obviously wanted to have that bigger story, hopefully resonate with people outside the region. But that's continued on through the work of people like McKenna, and it's been slightly interrupted, but certainly reaching a wider audience. It's actually helped in some ways because we've sort of had to, the film is finished and we don't want it to get outdated. So what are new ways we can try to get it out there? So just engaging citizens to host screenings and things like that. That was, kind of not part of the plans originally, but so it's definitely been a challenge, but sometimes doors open when others close, right?
Right. And it's interesting you say that you originally wanted it to be a local and regional impact, but I guess when I watched the film, I got that part certainly, but it opened up kind of my mind and my world to, I think, who is it? Somebody in there, like a city council member or somebody says there's a global ecological collapse happening. Like that to me seems like what the film's about, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, climate change has played a huge role in the recent declines of Kokanee. There's, the lake is warming up and it's causing this dissolved oxygen to be lessened, which means basically the Kokanee have to live in this small little stratified layer of the lake. And so predators can pick them off and other things like that. So, I mean, climate change is definitely happening at the lake. And so, plus all this, people moving here and the ways development is done. It's all kind of threads that tie into any community, I think.
McKenna, having been part of that film for so long, what was it like when it first got released, when you first saw the finished product? I know sometimes seeing yourself on camera can be rough, but just in general, what was it like seeing the film?
Seeing the story come together was very exciting because there was just so much that needed to be covered, and Nils did it so excellently. I mean, this story is so vast and probably could have a sequel. How much still needs to be done, and it was wonderful seeing those stories interwoven from the tribe's perspective, from the community's perspective, and all coming around the fish, like you said, that character of the fish even. It was really good to see.
How about for you, Nils?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I watched many permutations and iterations along the way, but I think it was when we had the sort of initial rough cut viewing, and it was about 60 people, and you just saw that there's an impact, that this really matters to these folks, and it mattered even more to me at that point, and really wanted to make the film as good as it could be. But yeah, it was just that, I'd been covering this story of community, and then that was the moment where I really felt part of the community. And now I moved here about 2 weeks ago too.
Oh, you just moved?
Yeah, I was in Seattle, and I moved out to near the lake. So
was that partly because of your work on the film? Did that bring you out?
Certainly opened my eyes to the deep history here, as well as just, I experienced the natural beauty, but having that deeper attachment to it. Yeah, it certainly played a role. Yeah.
Well, congratulations again on a really beautiful and powerful film. I feel privileged to have been part of talking to you both, and just a chance to watch the film in depth like that. So thank you, and thanks for being part of this Q&A today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ben Film.
Take care.
Okay, bye.